Hello and welcome to CATSweek. I'm Annalise Poorman. At the Monroe County Solid Waste Management District meeting on December 9th, Bloomington Mayor John Hamilton asked the board why there was an increase in revenue this year compared to others. Board member Cheryl Munson added that the revenue picked up in June of 2021.
It looks like in 2021, since June, there has been increased revenue coming in compared to 2020, more so than the first half of the year.
Board member Isabel Piedmont Smith said she noticed that the metal recycling generated $25,000 more than had been projected. Executive Director Tom McGlasson confirmed that they are receiving more money than expected for scrap metal.
I've not specifically looked at that, but just, just general information, I would want to look and compare our volumes, from previous years, which that budget would have been based on. But I do know as a result of COVID, scrap prices are up. So, we are getting, more than we estimated for the metal that we're collecting.
On December 8th, at the Bloomington Arts Commission meeting, Assistant Director for the Arts, Holly Warren, gave an update on the opening of the Waldron and the future of exhibition management. She said the Waldron will reopen on January 7th.
I think this is a really important event. I think the city and all of the artists and arts organizations and audience members they've invested a lot in this. I get calls and emails about the status of this every day. So I just want to make sure everybody knows about it and everybody knows to come. Luckily, this will align with January Gallery Walk. So people will already be out and about and kind of primed to come see art things.
Warren said there will be a visual art exhibit again, and she's collaborating with local galleries and artists to ensure there is a solid management plan in place to facilitate it in the future. Assistant Curator of European and American Art, Galena Olmsted, and Curator of Contemporary Art, Elliot Reichert, presented an exhibition that will be at the Sidney and Lois Eskenazi Museum of Art. Board member Rachel Kabukala asked about the museum's plans regarding diversity, equity, and inclusion, and if organizations such as the First Nations Education and Cultural Center have been contacted. Olmsted said that there is an audience committee that addresses the museum's demographics.
We are working both with the sociology department at IU and with outside research firms to develop a strategy for doing a visitor survey that's going to give us a baseline to move forward to think about how can we be more expansive in our audience. In terms of collaboration with both on-campus and off-campus groups to make sure that people know about this exhibition and its content, I'm really hoping that we can have your help in that. We have a list of organizations, both on campus and in the community, who we think that we should be meeting with and talking to about this exhibition. We have contacts for some of those, but I'd be so grateful if we could circulate a list to you. And even if you just know, like you used to live down the street from someone who works at First Nation office at IU, those little connections can really help get our email read to say, oh, so-and-so suggested that I get in touch with you. That also, I think, helps make people feel really included and considered. So my hope is that we can send that list to you after this meeting, and that you can sort of comb through and drop in any contacts you might have. And that's going to help us with the next phase of this sort of community outreach component.
The next board meeting will be on January 12th. The Monroe County Commissioners voted to amend a zoning ordinance for future development at their December 8th meeting. The amendment only affects the development of land greater than 5 acres. Assistant Director of the Planning Department, Jackie Nestor Jellin, presented the amendment.
So just a quick summary of this text amendment. This is Ordinance 2021-57. It's amendment to Chapter 815, which is site plan review. And the request this morning is to add on an addition to allow for phasing of larger projects. So right now we allow for phasing under our subdivision control ordinance, and we also allow for phasing for lands that are zoned plan unit development. The only thing that this leaves out is for properties that are zoned by right, not a plan unit development, that do not involve a subdivision, are currently left out of the phasing possibility. So we are adding this in to be consistent with other parts of the ordinance.
Nestor Jelen explained the purpose of the amendment and how the sanctions benefit Monroe County residents.
The benefit of phasing for the planning department and for the county and the developer is that we can potentially reduce the amount of ground that is disturbed at the initial onset of the project if they choose to do so in phases. Additionally, it allows us to see the entire scope of the project at once without limiting their ability to occupy structures as they're completed within phases. But it still gives us the protection and the leverage of future phases and future buildings that are tied to later requirements and making sure each phase is standalone by the ordinance. So I talked a little bit about the applicability. They have to be at least 5 acres. When we're talking about phasing, how we will review this in the planning office is that they're actually going to have both an illustrative map clearly delineating each phase, as well as a combined narrative. So we understand that both of these will be able to be enforceable by the county if and when they get to the point where they're requesting occupancy and a land use certificate from planning. So we think that these 2 items together will give us a strong ability to enforce the ordinance.
Commissioner Lee Jones expressed her support for the ordinance.
I think this is an excellent amendment to the chapter. It really makes sure that things go the way they're supposed to, which doesn't always happen. So I'm very supportive of this.
Commissioner Julie Thomas said that the amendment would help protect Monroe County residents from things such as stormwater runoff while allowing community members to get projects approved in a timely manner. The amendment passed unanimously. Thomas reminded county residents that applications for Monroe County boards and commissions are available. She encouraged individuals who are interested in making the community better to apply. The next county commissioners meeting will be held on December 15th. And we'll have more Cats Week after this message.
I'm at risk of thinking there's just no point in trying.
I'm at risk of looking in the mirror and hating what I see.
I'm at risk of regretting what I do, just to join the crowd.
I'm at risk of being told not to tell. And you would never know it by looking at me.
But with Girls Inc. in my corner,
There for me, every day.
Believing in me, showing me what's possible.
I can be strong enough to respect myself and my body.
to say I can rather than I can't,
To say no with no apology.
To be a leader.
to finish school,
To own my future.
To break the cycle.
Girls Inc. believes every girl can succeed. That's why the trained professionals of Girls Inc. are there for our girls every day, supporting, mentoring, and guiding them in a safe, girls-only environment. Building bonds that last for years and change that lasts a lifetime. Girls Inc. gives girls the tools they need to boldly face challenges, to resist peer pressure, to be the first in their families to go to college, to beat the odds. With Girls Inc. in her corner, every girl can be healthy, confident, and resilient. She'll do more than dream about her potential. She'll reach it.
With you in my corner,
With you in my corner, I will not be another statistic.
I will fight for myself.
For my future.
With you in my corner, I will win.
Fuel her fire and she will change the world. Girls Inc. Inspiring all girls to be strong, smart, and bold.
Welcome back to CATSweek. The City of Bloomington Board of Public Works approved the installation of a fiber optic line on South Strong Drive at their meeting on December 7th. Public Works Director Adam Wason presented the resolution.
This is to install a fiber line for Catalent that would be a private fiber line. Usually those aren't allowed in the public rights of way. We've worked closely with them and their team to make sure that they identify this as a private utility with the 811 system in Indiana, pay for all the locate fees for any locates requested in the area, and then take on all maintenance responsibilities and costs associated with having that private line within the public right of way. They also added I believe some handholds on each side of the road to even draw further attention to the location of these of this fiber optics. So staff's requesting approval and the board's support.
Project engineer Patrick Dierkes added that approval for the street closure and a noise permit were included in the resolution. Board member Kyla Cox-Deckard asked if they would be able to extend the noise permits if the installation was postponed for any reason.
Yeah, I was just wondering if for some reason the 2 days, because it sounds like they're going to need those 2 days, like they're expecting it to take 2 days. So if for some reason there's a lot of precipitation or something that would cause them to have to change their excavation plan, is the 2-day noise permit something that can have any adjustments at the staff level, or how would we handle that?
Yeah.
Wason said they have the ability to work with the mayor's office and corporation counsel if there are any emergency-based extensions needed. The board approved the fiber optic line and the noise permit unanimously. At the Bloomington Board of Park Commissioners meeting on December 7th, Parks and Recreation Director Paula McDevitt presented the 2022 non-reverting budget.
Just a little bit of background. Our non-reverting budget, and you review that monthly in your packet as well, but it's our established enterprise fund. A lot of our programs that you set the fees for run through our non-reverting budget. It's developed as a zero-based budget model, just like we do our general fund budget. And it also allows a lot of flexibility in order to meet our participants and our customer needs. Again, it is a projection, so from year to year, obviously we monitor the revenue and expenses, but it also reduces the reliance on the general fund tax base. As you know, we go through that rigorous general fund approval process, but this is a whole other arm of our operation, which allows us much more greater flexibility. As the trends in programming and numbers increase or decrease, we can flex and ebb and flow with it.
She said that there was a decrease in seasonal staff positions and associated costs like health insurance. There was an increase in supply costs as building materials and agricultural supplies rose with inflation. The board unanimously passed the budget. Parks and Recreation Development Division Director Tim Street gave an update on the construction at Cascades Park and asked for a contract approval with Scenic Construction Services Incorporated.
This is to cover change order number 1, which encompasses a few different items with that project. It adds light fixtures along a newly constructed trail. We've determined we were able to restore that alternate from the original bid packet, which was a long-term goal to have light fixtures down there along the new quarter-mile section of trail to make it safer, to make it more pleasant, especially in the winter, short hours, things like that, getting to the waterfall shelter and across the bridge. It addresses a safety concern at the pedestrian bridge by fixing a drop-off into the creek. It corrects an electrical service issue to the waterfall shelter that was discovered as part of the project. And we'll fund the restoration of the waterfall spillway parking lot to turf instead of back to a gravel lot at the completion of the project, because we have closed the driving spillway access to drive across the spillway. So
The board approved the project unanimously. On December 6th, at the Bloomington Redevelopment Commission meeting, Parks and Recreation Development Division Director Tim Street presented a project to add lighting at Seminary Square Park.
You can see the orange circles were the original lights, which I don't know how old they were, but they were quite old. As I mentioned, we lost the last two this summer. They were actually about 9 foot tall acorn style lights. And the last two were actually ripped down. And so part of looking at this has been choosing something that's, number one, a little bit taller, that is a little harder to break. Hopefully we are not tested to the extreme on that. We want to pick something that adds value to the park and adds aesthetic, but remains durable. And because it is taller and dark sky compliant now, which is one bonus of upgrading the lighting, we would only need 5 of these. They'd originally suggested 6, and we actually removed 1 because we feel like we're able to achieve the foot candles that we want in the park. They'll also have a control system that allows us to set the light level remotely via a laptop as well. So, for example, we could keep a low level of light there and then turn it up as needed if, we need to perform maintenance or things like that. Especially important in the winter, as we know, it's dark now, so the lighting will really be crucial in the winter months.
Street said the installation of lights for the interior of the park is for maintenance, safety, and aesthetic purposes. Board member Deborah Meyerson asked about the Redevelopment Commission's ability to fund other projects in Seminary Square.
Not strictly related to this resolution, but it's common with the idea of capital improvements for Seminary Park, and that is, could RDC funds be used for restrooms in this park? And if so, how would that be brought forward?
City Controller Jeff Underwood responded, saying that the Parks Department, Engineering Department, and Public Works work together on park master plans.
I know the idea of restrooms, availability has been a big item. We had public restrooms installed in both of the 2 new parking garages. And funds were made available for the 4th Street garage to be open on a 24-hour basis. So we're going to test that out and see how that goes. Obviously, looking at added patrols to make sure that there's no damage. This is a park that has seen a lot of damage. We've seen this with the lighting. So that's another thing that we take into account is, can we keep the facilities open, can we maintain them, and can we keep them safe? So that's a little bit of the background on how we work on these projects.
The board voted to approve the lighting funding unanimously. The next Redevelopment Commission meeting will be held on December 20th. And we'll have more Cats Week after this message.
For hurting families in Monroe County.
A contribution to children who are vulnerable and in need of an advocate.
A staff that goes above and beyond to support and advocate for children in need of services.
The web of remarkable people who are dealing with difficult situations.
So many young people that are in need of help and trying to find a stable family, a stable place to live. Without the CASAs to make that happen, many of them would be unable to find a good home.
I love being that voice for the child who can't speak for themselves in court.
It takes me out of my comfort zone, and it also helps others.
CASA means supporting our community.
Being a CASA is making sure that your village is healthy and whole, and that the children in your village will someday be able to help the village as well.
A child who doesn't have a voice, maybe in their family situation or a school situation, now has a voice that can advocate for them.
I really enjoy working with children that are going through difficult times and letting them know that I care about their future.
We are privileged with our charge of representing the best interest of children. And so therefore we can advocate for exactly what they need without restriction, focusing on their best interest.
I want to repair the world one child at a time.
Welcome back to Cats Week. At the Bloomington Utilities Service Board meeting on December 6th, Utilities engineer Jane Fleig presented an agreement with Eagle Ridge Civil Engineering Services, LLC, for downtown culvert modeling services and drainage modeling services to help mitigate flooding.
It's the last piece of what was called the Jordan River Culvert. It's the piece that starts at Dunn, just north of Kirkwood, and goes over to Indiana between Kirkwood and 6th. That's the last piece that will require upgrading. We asked the consulting engineer for a price to design that section. It also includes relocation of water mains, sewer mains, connecting storm sewers, et cetera. A lot of coordination with IU. So this one is for an amount of $355,480 and would like to have your approval on that.
Board member Scott Robinson asked for clarification on the scope of the modeling. Fleig said the drainage improvements would be from 1st Street up to 6th Street and the Dunn Meadow area. The project funding was approved unanimously. At the COVID-19 press conference on December 2nd, Board of Health Director Penny Caudill gave an update on the rise in community spread of COVID-19.
Yesterday, we had 94 cases reported to the dashboard, the largest number of cases reported since January of 2021. When we had 104 cases at that time, today's cases were in the mid 70s. I think it was 74. When I looked back through my data notes, I found days that were in the mid 70s in the first week of January of this past year, followed by that 104. In the end of July, we had 58 cases reported in one day. So we have seen that big jump that you were talking about as well. With over half of our eligible population vaccinated, some people may be asking, why is this happening? Well, while half of our eligible population vaccinated may be much better than some surrounding counties, it is not good. It's not nearly high enough. Mask wearing indoors and in crowded situations is waning, and it is clear that people are not staying home when they are sick.
IU Health President Brian Shockney reported on the rising COVID-19 cases in the region.
Our numbers have nearly doubled in the last week. We're seeing the same trend in the numbers between IU Health Bloomington and Monroe Hospital and their COVID admissions as well. We didn't expect to be increasing in cases so soon again, but as temperatures turn colder, vaccination levels continue to remain low across the country, and in some of our areas here in the South Central region, we're once again seeing a spike, as Penny shared earlier. According to the Washington Post, states such as our neighboring Michigan saw an 86% increase in COVID cases and a 37% increase in hospitalizations in the month of November, narrowing in on the numbers that rivaled their peak experience in April of 2020. We also are seeing early indications of the same level of increases of positivity and hospital admissions, not only at IU Health, but also across the state of Indiana. The hospital admissions and census in our district mirror the Indiana pattern. On the screen here, you see the recent pattern since July of this year. We never recovered from this current surge as we did in the previous surges. And here we are ramping back up with infections, hospitalizations, and unfortunately, deaths.
Caudill said that they have learned through contact tracing that there are numerous instances of individuals going to social gatherings with symptoms of COVID-19 and urged residents to get tested before going to gatherings, even if they think it could just be allergies. IU Chief Health Officer Aaron Carroll said that individuals who have been vaccinated might think they don't have to take as many precautions, but warned that there can be breakthrough cases.
Want to add to that?
I do. We absolutely have seen this. We're seeing it in our contact tracing where we find people who are positive, and when we're doing the work, it turns out that they've had 2 days of symptoms, which are concerning. I think that there's a variety of reasons for this. One is that, until a year or two ago, it was part of our culture that there was something noble or American about powering through sickness and going to work even if you didn't feel well. it's hard to get people not to do that. We have students that don't want to fall behind. We have professors that don't want to miss class. We have staff that want to go to work. And so convincing everyone that when you have symptoms, you need to stay home and you need to get tested is still a climb. The second is that a lot of the cases that we see this happen in are people who are vaccinated, and they assume therefore that they are safe, and that when they do feel symptoms, that it's much less likely that they will have COVID. And that is true. It is less likely, but it is not zero. And we encourage them to get tested. But if you have to do this a couple of times a year because you have had colds or other viruses or RSV or enterovirus or the flu, after a while, it just becomes human nature. You start to discount it. So we are redoubling our messaging internally that anyone with symptoms needs to stay home, needs to get tested, needs to stay away until they know they don't have COVID, but that message needs to be spread widely.
And that is all for CATSweek. Thank you for joining us. For CATS and WFHB, I'm Annalise Poorman.